Hello everyone, I am here with a DIY. This is for Christmas ornaments that I made recently, so you can see them here on my Christmas tree. I got this idea when I saw these concept photos from the recent album and these ornaments that I found at Michael's, and I thought it would be cool to make them sort of 3D ornaments with some of the nature elements from the photos. And since they're already in a ball, I thought it would work and it'd be pretty cool. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a hot glue gun and of course stocked with glue, some scissors. Also, you need an empty ornament that you can take apart like this. I got mine at Michael's. You can get them at any craft store. You need some ribbon. I just have some leftover red ribbon, and then I have some elements like moss and some twigs. It's actually kind of like a little mini wreath, but I'm going to cut it into twigs. Then you're also going to need pictures that you want to use. You can use any pictures, but I like these concept photos because they're already in like a little ball, and so I thought that was the perfect photo for this, but you could use any photo that you want. I printed my photos on photo paper and I just resized them multiple times to make sure I could get a size that would fit in my ornament. And once I had a size that would fit in my ornament, I just held the ornament over top to test it, as you just saw, and then I cut out that picture. So I've actually already made 3 of these, and I'm making this 4th one just for the sake of the video. So that's the first 2 that you saw. I had already done a lot of trial and error, so this is going to go pretty quickly. But yeah, so I place the ornament over my cutout, and then I use a pen to mark around the circle so that way I know where to cut, because you're going to have to trim the picture multiple times most likely because it's not going to fit exactly the first time. So I just cut the square out and then traced the ornament so that I could get a size that's likely to fit. But as you'll see here, I'm gonna have to trim it multiple times. The first time that I did this, I actually cut way too much off the first time that I cut the circle, and then the picture just falls into the ornament. That's not what I wanted, but if you want it to go all the way back to the back wall of the ornament of the circle, you could press it in there and glue it. I just wanted mine to be in the center more so. So the back of my ornaments are just blank. They don't, they're not pretty from the back or the sides. They're mainly just meant to be looked at from the front. But you could do it either way if you want to glue it all the way to the back of the ornament, or if you want to use a double-sided picture, something like that. But I am going to stick mine into the half of the ornament and not push it all the way back. And I just think it makes it look better when you're done. For the type of ornament that I'm doing with 3D nature elements, it's supposed to just look like it's 3D and not like it's, back in the very back of the ornament with just random moss and twigs thrown in. So here you can see I'm trimming it and I'm pressing it into the ornament, and where it's still too big on the sides, I just trim off little bits and pieces each time, so that way I don't end up wasting a photo and having to start all over, because that's definitely what happened the first few times. So I press it into the ornament and resize it as necessary, and once I can get it in pretty well, then I know, okay, if I just trim a little bit off of the top, it should fit. And I don't want it to like crinkle or crease. So the first 2 that I did, they didn't really crinkle or crease, and this one did a little bit because I was trying to press it into the ornament too forcefully. So be careful. If you use regular paper, it's probably not going to be stiff enough. That's why I used a glossy photo paper. You could use cardstock, something like that, but I don't recommend just using regular printer paper because it'll be too flimsy. So here you can see I'm pressing it into the ornament. It's a little bit crinkly, but I don't really care so much because I'm mainly just doing this for the sake of the video. But I'm pushing it in and pressing to make a little ridge around the side so that it'll kind of stick in there by itself. So you can do that, and you can also secure it with hot glue, or you can just put a little bit of tape at the top if you want to. Mine stays in just as is, and once I start putting the moss in, the hot glue will hold it down. So now I'm just getting the moss out. I got this at Michael's as well. I don't recommend using real moss. That's probably not a good idea. So I bought the fake moss at Michael's, and I'm just going to rip it into smaller pieces because it comes in large chunks. But if you rip it into smaller pieces, you can layer it within the ornament, and I think it looks better in the end if you do it like that because you can better place where you want each piece to go. This here is like a little wreath, I think. It was kind of near the fake bird's nests at Michael's, and it was the only thing I could find that was this texture that sort of looks like twigs or trees. So you could use a little wreath like this and just cut pieces like I am, or you could use real twigs if you want to. I don't see why that wouldn't work. You can also use other elements instead of just moss and twigs for these ornaments if you want to, because some of the photos have like grass and flowers and I think maybe little rocks or something. So you could put those in there as well, or you could substitute the like little rocks for the moss, whatever you like best. I think the moss looks more natural in the photo because it's already green. I was going to put some little rocks in there as well, but the ornaments are already heavy enough, I think, without putting that in there. So just be careful that it's not too heavy that it's just going to fall off the tree. So now I'm going to start putting hot glue into the bottom and pressing the moss in. So I just squeeze a little bit of hot glue around the border of the picture and then press the moss into it while the glue is still wet. And I did burn myself several times doing this, so be very careful. But I tend to press the moss down as flat as I can get it, pull off the little hot glue strings that get everywhere. But you can always layer the moss up if you want it to go higher, but I think that it will hold better if you press the bottom layer pretty flat, so that way the moss is fully sticking to the glue. So I do this around the bottom and a little bit up the sides of each ornament, and I just keep pressing and putting more moss on top. So now that I've got a couple layers of moss, I just kept layering moss and glue on top of each other and pressing it down. And I've got a decent layer, and I don't want to go too much higher because I'll cover the photo. So now I'm just placing the little twigs where I think I want them to go. And I like to do this first without putting the glue in, so that way I can rearrange the twigs and make sure they're not all like going the same direction and overlapping, and also making sure that they aren't too big. This little bird's nest or wreath or whatever this was that I cut up had various pieces of texture on it, so I took some of those off so that it would fit better into the ornament. And then when I know where I want the pieces to go, I put a decent sized glob of hot glue on top of the moss and then press the twig down into the glue, and then I hold it there for a little bit so that way the glue has a chance to harden without the twig falling out. So here I am just placing more of the twigs into the glue and holding that just to let it dry. I'm trying to make the twigs go in different directions so that it looks more dynamic once it's done. And you want to do the same thing with any other elements. If you have little flowers or little rocks, go ahead and just glue them down to the bottom. In front of the picture, you could also go on the sides or the top, but I think it's easier just to get it to stick on the bottom. And so far, the ones that I made earlier before this video, they've not come apart at all, so I think it helps having everything concentrated on the bottom. I'm also putting a little bit of extra moss over top of the twigs. Now that I've got the twigs in there, that helps to cover up the glue that is holding the twigs in and makes it blend in better. So now you can see that I've got the lid pressed onto the ornament. They just fit together. They're not the best hold. You can pull it apart pretty easily, so when you're done, if you want to, you can hot glue the ornament together, but I didn't do this to mine just in case I ever need to repair it. So what I'm doing now is actually adding a little bit of hot glue to the empty side of the ornament so that I can put some more moss. I like putting the moss in the front part of the ornament as well, so that it sort of brings the illusion of the 3D, nature elements forward, and it just looks more complete that way to me. You don't have to put anything in the front part of the ornament. You could just pop the lid on and be done. but I am going to put a small layer of moss in the front here. And now I'm just fitting together the ornament with the moss on both sides, so you can see the seam where the ornament closes together in between the moss, but you can really only see it from the bottom, so it doesn't matter to me. So I've glued down all of the moss and I've let it dry a little bit, and I've just stuck the ornament together. And now I'm going to cut a small piece of ribbon and just loop it through the hole and tie it in a double knot. Don't tie it in a single knot, it'll definitely come undone. So tie it in a tight double knot and then just trim off the edges and you're good to go. So here you can see this is the finished product, and thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer.